I think I have a question.
Okay.
I noticed that the more I come and the more I attend the meetings, read your books, the more open I become to the like so warm and loving light of the living teaching. And I feel it better, feel it stronger. And you're like a nuclear plant that produces all the light and energy. And sometimes it's just too much to take. If I'm having a good day and the FSA is not too strong, if I open up enough, if I can feel it, it's just very, very powerful. And it's so powerful that it's sometimes it's even scares me and I like try to close up involuntarily. And it's interesting. Did you feel did is it like yours or did you feel it from did you feel the same from Ramesh?
Yes, it is. What you're describing is what I put under the umbrella of resonance. It is that quality in the guru-disciple relationship that I am very familiar with in my relationship with Ramesh, and I felt it quite powerfully with him. So I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I really am looking for to experience to open up more because it's very beautiful. Like energy.
Yes. Well, that same power that gave this to you in the first place is responsible for you either opening up more or closing down more. So the recognition of the source of this may help you just relax into it.
There's nothing I can do anyway. So I do feel more relaxed. But at the same time, once you see in yourself some aspects of personality that you don't like,
Yes.
I wouldn't say like negativity, but something that you'd rather not have,
Yes.
some reactions you'd rather not have. Um, and I understand that it's involvement, it's FSA.
No, 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 that's not.
It's not.
No, on the contrary. I mean that that is not the FSA that is making, quote, those judgments. Oh, you blame it on but it's ultimately, even if the FSA was, quote, responsible for it, it is not ultimately responsible for it. Meaning the FSA is still an instrument of totality. So what we talk about as the FSA is only a certain movement by totality that brings constriction and suffering.
The closer you got to understanding, did you feel that it was residing that because there's like this concept that I know you always say that sage is not a saint and it's different, but still you have some kind of expectation that the closer you get to the final understanding that you're talking about, the less um, negativity is in you, the less.
Well, that is the fantasy, yes. Of course, that's the fantasy that you will become, quote, perfected in whatever your picture of perfection is. Everybody's got a different one, But so what you identify in yourself as your, quote, defects of character, those qualities of yourself in yourself, which bring you pain, which you don't like, which, I mean, are in contrast to your own value system. Those qualities, of course, you would like to be rid of them. We all would. but some of them may go. That's a possibility, certainly. But this death of the false sense of authorship is probably not going to do it. You see, those two things are independent of one another. The characteristics of the organism, because what you're talking about are characteristics of this organism, specific to you. I mean, they may share common to others, but they are specific to you. This is your combination of characteristics that have emerged as a result of your genetics and your unique life experiences, and all of those things have produced you as you are today, in this moment, with a full range of characteristics, both positive and negative. I mean, meaning, and the negative ones are primarily the ones we don't like, we consider that we don't like, that bring us pain. We consider those characteristics negative. And so it is quite natural to want to be rid of those characteristics. That has nothing to do with the FSA. It's that it is the sense that I should not be as I am. That the way I am is incorrect. The way I am is some mistake on the part of somebody or something, either me or the universe as an object. It screwed up, I screwed up, somebody screwed this up, and I should not be this way. It's a mistake. That's what we call this involvement by the false sense of authorship. So when the false sense of authorship is in abeyance, you still have the quality, you still have those characteristics, but in the absence of the sense that I should not have them, in the absence of that, the suffering doesn't arise. So the characteristics still bring you pain and difficulties, those negative ones. And that's life. I mean, you get the whole package. But that suffering, which is, it shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't be this way. I should be better. I should be different. That is the peace that we're pointing. The acceptance of oneself as one is, as part of the vastness of things. And it is inclusive of the negative. That's crucial. In this teaching, it includes everything. And the negative is traditionally left out. In other words, when it's talked about as in terms of consciousness or God or truth, or the negative is somehow apart from that. And you have to overcome the negative to get to the truth, to get to the perfection, to get to the absolute. But that's not the absolute. In this teaching, we're pointing, when we talk about totality, it's everything. All that is, and all that is includes, what we consider to be negative. Yes.
So as the claim of authorship is reducing in different areas of the experiences, what I am seeing is that, it's a matter of realizing that good and bad both are going to be part of what is, and there's nothing that this entity that you think you are can do anything about it. So why So the futility of claiming the authorship is understood or
Yes, I mean, you may understand the futility of claiming authorship, and the claim of authorship continues to happen.
it's still strong.
That's-
It's strong in some experiences, but many of the experiences it is in abeyance.
yes,
And also what I'm realizing is not just there's a change between, oh, this experience is happening to me versus it's just happening. Experience is happening and there isn't any entity to which that experience is happening.
really. There's no entity.
Right. It's just then the more I am investigating, fact, when I'm seeing this moment as, okay, I see the sense of authorship, and then it's not as grasping on my experiences anymore. What's happening is it's just what remains is just the experience. But there is no thought that's, oh, that experience happened to me. If that makes sense.
In the moment,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
There may well not be awareness of the experience as being my experience. There's only experience. So yes, that is the absence of the entity, if you will, that is well, let's say identified with the experience.
Correct.
Right. So that is one of the three states that we talk about, in this teaching, of that unidentified state in which there's simply experience happening and there's no sense that I'm doing it. The identified state in which there's a sense of I'm doing this. And then the third state in which there is involvement in the identification, which is at its root that this identity that is aware of its actions, yes, or its thinking. This identity is independent, an independent entity. So it is a claim of independence which produces the suffering. And it is this secondary involvement that produces the suffering. The primary involvement is simply one aspect of being human. Sometimes we know what we're doing, we're self-identified. There's the self gets a really bad name in spiritual circles.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. The self because often what is referred to as the self includes both of these things that we talk about in this teaching. And so what is a characteristic of this particular teaching is that we have the self in two parts. We identify the self as something that is in two sections. One is the functional one. It is simply a recognition that I'm doing it. And that's useful in many circumstances. But this secondary involvement is not particularly useful. It is generally what we would think of as negative. It produces suffering, and it produces constriction and a sense of isolation. All of that is a characteristic of that kind of identification, secondary involvement. So those differentiations are potentially useful in looking at what's going on, in trying to identify where's the suffering coming from, what's making this this way. And sometimes that recognition brings about a easing of that suffering. Certainly have no guarantees, but there's people's experience often as they relate it is that as it is recognized, as it is seen, there is an easing of the secondary involvement. And anything that reduces suffering is okay in my book. You know, it's I put a high value on that.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. And also kind of also relate with what Miguel was saying about the behaviors that are demonstrated, which now the more the FSA is understood, there are more and more categories of events that are counting as that's so embarrassing. I did that. There's more and more of those coming up. But again, there is also this understanding that is applied to it, which is that's also happening. I'm not the author.
I also wanted to share that before I started coming here, I was reading some Advaita book and I understood the concept of I'm not the doer and everybody else is not the doer, and I got into a mind trap. So whenever people were behaving certain way, like my husband, my kids, my friends, I was also saying to myself, oh, he's not the author, she's not the author. It's not his fault. And it got me worse and worse into some really bad situations that I should not have got myself. I should not let some people treat me that way, you know, because I was thinking, oh, they're not the authors. Like I was trying to see, oh, this play is doing this, it's not like certain person. But right now, it's acceptance on a different level. It's not acceptance of certain behavior of people should treat you the way you deserve to be treated. But I don't know if you understand, but
Yes.
different kind of acceptance. It's not the acceptance of unacceptable behavior or some things that you don't like, all kind of stuff. So thank you for the understanding too.
Yes. So what you're describing is the understanding that your reaction is part of this doing also, or I mean, part of the doing that you are not responsible for.
And the concept that I should not be behaving this way was stopping me from letting it be. I was just stopping myself from reacting the way I was supposed, the way my body wanted to react, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had this concepts that like good people don't do that, enlightened people would never do that, and I wanted to be closer to.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yes, and it got me further and further away from what I was seeking.
Yes, that is the irony in all that.
That is the irony.
Mm-hmm.